Welcome to Shamanic Voices, a profound journey into the heart of shamanism led by a seasoned practitioner with over 40 years of experience and his journeymen. Join us as we learn how this ancient wisdom can help you navigate your modern life. I'm Brian Nolan, your host, a journeyman Tietia, and with me now is your co-host, Georg Breckman, a shaman Tietia. Georg, how are you doing today?
Not quite well, Brian. Glad we're meeting today and getting to bring some additional topics about our healing, our lives and healing out.
Absolutely. I think you wanted today to talk about more of the client-practitioner relationship and some common themes that we tend to run into in this practice.
Well, you know, when you run across something once or twice, you go, maybe that's an anomaly. Maybe that's just a personal idiosyncrasy. When you run across it repeatedly, you go, there's a pattern here, maybe a cultural pattern that we should perhaps explore for the benefit of our listeners. And also because many of them are looking for alternative therapies themselves. And the question might be for them, if I'm a listener and I haven't done this before, I've just started looking for alternative help, how do I get the most out of it? And so I think about the people we've dealt with who aren't getting the most out of it for reasons that they are more in control of than we are. And I'm sure you've run into this also, Brian, so I'll just bring up one of my big ones that has come up so repeatedly, I have to come into it. And I actually have an essay up on our blog about too many cooks in the kitchen. Just thinking of cooks or chefs is an equivalence to healers. And that is people who make their health foibles, their issues, a hobby. It becomes a major topic of conversation with anybody, anytime. And with these people, I find that they really don't know what helped them if something did. Because, I remember about a year ago running into this one, a very young woman. I think she was like 28 or something like that, a young professional woman. And she was telling me about that the same month that I worked with her, I don't even remember how the topic came up. She said she was going to run it by so-and-so, and they saw that there was some major improvement and asked who had worked with her. And so she told them about this Nordic shaman and how good she felt afterward. And I said, well, how many people did you deal with over the last month? 6 different types of therapy. I couldn't make this up.
Were they all energetic healing styles? Was it a mixture of allopathy and holistic healing?
Well, one of them was hands-on. One of them was something to do with kachinas, some sort of American Indian magic. Let's see. Another one was one of the more things we might more likely know about, like quantum healing, I think. Quantum healing,
all different things that were relating to the alternative health care that involves energy work. You know, you Google what energy work will help me.
Yep. And so she's bringing the same list of her woes to each one of these people. And I thought about her. I thought, well, she's doing pretty well, but that's a lot of money if you have that, because we charge a reasonable amount. But some of these people, like you're talking $120 an hour, and they're watching the clock. I mean, if it's an hour and 15 minutes, they're charging you another $30, and you're not walking out of there with less than 120 to 150, no matter what you do.
Yeah.
And I thought, so how is she affording all of this? And then she said, it's not that hard, Greg. I just I swap. I said, you what? Well, one of them has an issue, so I help them because I do such and such on trying to even think what she does. She's some sort of personal coach of some sort. Anyway,
like a life coach kind of?
Yeah, that sort of thing. But it was a specialized type coaching. I forget what it was, maybe success coach or something like that. So she does her success coaching, and this person listens to her woes and helps her with whatever her particular healing technique. So this is the case for most of these people. So this hobby is consuming a huge amount of time with completely diverse opinions. So on the given topic that we might define, and I guess our primary emphasis is we're looking at, first of all, from an orthomolecular perspective. Now, if we can't completely explain it that way, we're certainly willing to look at it from a psychosomatic perspective. We're willing to look at it from a spiritual perspective because we have the depth to do all three. We're not just stuck with trying to push everything into a corner and say, well, it's all emotionally driven. If we straighten out your emotions, your life will be perfect and your health will be perfect. We know better.
Right.
You know, you can have a perfect emotional life and still have a wrecked body. I'm sorry, but that's how life works.
Well, I mean, that's what drew me to this in the beginning so much. I mean, I've talked about it. When I first met you before training with you, the conversations were medical, about the orthomolecular anatomy, about the physiology and pathology behind things. And not that the spiritual component is not a major of what we do in working with the gods and goddesses, but it's science. It's not just pushing energy work into someone and going, this is going to heal you and whatnot. No, it's understanding, why is the body acting like this? What is behind this?
Yeah, you got to know what's going on under the hood, so you know whether you need to change the spark plug or whether you actually need a new engine seal. I mean, it's pretty important to make that distinction if you're going to be a good mechanic. You know?
Yeah. I mean, at least a mechanic doesn't have to counsel cars. It's a little bit different there.
Right. There you go. So this is a trend I'm running into. It's like this obsession with health as a hobby, as a preoccupation, rather than just, okay, I want to look after myself. I want to be healthy. I want to focus on what makes me well. I want to focus on what leads me forward and gives me a more effective stance in my world, a more effective posture in the world. Makes my life more fulfilling, more successful. Yes.
Well, I met a client recently that was going on and on about their disorder. You could tell their disorder was part of their identity, and it was a laundry list. And we get to the concept of I have this feeling that they're kind of isolating or not having healthy social groups. And I come to find out, the social group they hang out with, 2 or 3 times a week, they all get together and they just compare their chronic pain, and they swap pictures of their surgeries.
Seriously?
And I go, so you are reinforcing this as a normal mode of action, that this is who I am, and therefore the more surgeries or the more chronic pain I collect, the more I stand out within this group.
The more status you have in the group.
Yeah.
And the more attention you harvest from the other loose gatherers in the group and whatever beings are behind them. Oh, that doesn't sound very therapeutic at all.
No.
And I think the other danger of this is, you think about it, Brian, however we focus our attention on, this is not pure manifestation, but it tends to lead us in that direction. It tends to be what we get. It's well known with drivers that you tend to steer the wheel automatically in the direction you're looking. So if you're constantly looking to lift, you're going to start jumping lanes, whether you mean to or not. This is reality. This is real human behavior. So if you're constantly focusing on your symptoms, well, that becomes your reality. You're going to have more of those symptoms. If instead you're focusing on, gee, this made me a little bit better, let me see my way to getting even more relief next time, and better and better and better, then you tend to pull yourself out of that pit.
Yeah. When we look even from a disorder standpoint, in the manifestation, when we work with things like resistant obesity, which is something we've been working with people very recently on, if that person has, whether it's part of their identity because it's reinforcing their social group, they're getting attention from it, their woes and everything else, or it's because they have either internalized from themselves or others, or just culture in general, that no matter what I do, this will never change. They're so accepting of this, that there is no change, that no matter what they do from a healthy standpoint, eating, exercise, on a deeper level, they don't want to get rid of it. I mean, this ties into so much more than just obesity. When you look at an addict, someone who has decided, I will never be free from this vice, or someone who's dealing with interference in some way, whether psychically, if they feel like they're never going to stop getting interfered with, they won't.
It's kind of learned helplessness. I am a victim. I'm always going to be a victim. You can help me with different ways of mitigating my victimhood, but by golly, it's part of my identity. And I am damn well not letting go of it. There's some of this. And sometimes it's really interesting to me to look at an intake form. I just happened to be going through filing some old forms the other day, and I went back to one that was, I had it in the wrong file for a different geographic area, because I practice like you do in a lot of different spots. So I have Ohio in one big file folder. I have Indiana in another. I have, North Carolina, wherever the hell I'm going, in a different spot. and here locally in a different area. So I'm looking at this and I go, wait a minute. This person started our relationship by telling me, I've tried this and this and this and this and this. So basically don't bother going there. And I was remembering as I did it, our first interview where I'm going over some really basic, what I feel like are basic things like, okay, you've had IBS. Okay. You've had all these other conditions that are dysbiosis, SIBO possibly, a few other things. So what's the common denominator? Well, it's obviously cultural choices. How do you eat? What do you eat?
Right.
How much vegetable oil do you consume? How much fried food do you consume? Well, I enjoy eating. I don't like cooking. I like to just order out. And I feel like that's just one of the little things in life I deserve to do. I want to stop at a restaurant and pick something. I'll damn well take it home and enjoy it. Okay, gotcha. Now you don't know where that came from. You don't know how it was prepared. You had no control over the quality. And likely there's not much quality in it if you brought it out, and you brought it home, especially if it was so-called fast food. So I'm listening
even normal
to this,
foods. I worked in a pretty high-end restaurant when I was younger. I mean, the average plate was about, you pay $40 for an entree. So it was a higher level 3 or 4 star place. And all the salad dressings, they tasted great. They were all made with canola oil, though. I mean, I didn't know back then, but of course, why would they not use the cheapest oil to maximize profits? It's not illegal, so what does it matter? So they're not going to be using olive oil, and even if that olive oil was real olive oil, why would they increase their cost by 700% when people already enjoy the taste? They're not worried about your health.
No, you're right. It's just as food as entertainment. So we're getting on with this, and she says, well, I see what you sent me, because I sent her some stuff just after I read the intake form. I made myself a note on the back that I sent her some emails saying, hey, you might want to look at doing this and this and this. And I sent her the article from the blog about improving your digestion and about things that would do it, things that would improve heart health. Well, I've already tried all of that. So I said, okay, tell me about your experience with it. Well, I tried, what was it she was saying? I tried your probiotics. I said, my probiotics? No, I just tried some probiotics I picked up at the store. They had it at Walgreens on sale, and I got it. Okay. Did you check the bacteria count? Well, no, I don't know what you mean count. I said, well, it should be like in the billions if it's worth a darn. Oh, well, I don't read labels. Okay. So you just picked up probiotics and said, when did you do this? I said, what made you pick up the probiotics? Well, I knew I was going to have surgery and I'd have to have antibiotics because they were doing a diverticula. And after they did the diverticula, I knew I needed to do something. Doctor even thought it was a good idea. I said, great. So you did your course and then you had your surgery? Yeah. And what happened after the surgery? Oh, they gave you a massive dose of antibiotics for about a month. But hey, great, it all worked out well. They gave me some probiotics along with the anesthesia. Along with the antibiotics. Some probiotics with the antibiotics. I said, well, and I told her, I said, I'll just make up a name here. I said, Martha, that would be kind of like trying to raise crickets in your basement for the, fishing industry. And at the same time, you're hitting your basement with pesticides. You're not going to have a very good crop of crickets.
No, they're not going to take root and replicate at all.
Nope. You're going to have a bunch of dead crickets. So I said, this was an exercise in futility, but the doctor gave it to me. I said, it may have been to make you feel good, but in reality, you're wiping out everything you're putting into your guts with that next course of broad spectrum antibiotics they give you for something specifically like, an intestinal overgrowth of bacteria that you might encounter in undoing and doing a surgical remediation of a diverticula. Understood. The reason for it, so you do your probiotics afterward. Well, even then, I'd be willing to try it for a couple of weeks, but I didn't feel anything. I said, look, it's going to take you about a year to rebuild your probiotics. Well, I don't want to wait a year. I said, well, then you're going to continue to have indigestion because a lot of whether you digest food or not is happening in there. as a result of whether you have a good gut biome or one that's not working so well. This is just clinical fact. You can look up lots of sources on it. I've sent you sources. Well, I don't like to read technical details. You don't like to read technical details? Really? Okay.
Well, this kind of goes into the whole concept of how we're infantilized by not just the medical system, but in general, the entire system in the United States, where we are taught not to look into things, just trust other people, the experts, like the experts who tell us about climate change and are sitting there saying, don't eat meat, we're eating Wagyu and flying jets around the world, those people. So we're taught to listen to those people. Don't research yourself. Just trust us. Even though we've made the world so bad over the last 100+ years, we know what's best.
Just trust the experts and leave the driving to us.
Yes.
Well,
if you
this
don't have
is
a fancy piece of paper, you're not an expert.
It's that learned passivity, and then you run into the other side of that where I sent this person a bunch of stuff. Say, here, you might want to try this. We just, as you know, Brian, we just suggest it. We don't say, you have to take this. It's not a prescription. Please,
no.
If you've got a primary care physician, you've got a good, what do you call them? Integrative care specialist or homeopath, or what is that new thing? Functional medicine specialist. A good NP that's a functional medicine lady, and go to her and run this by her. Say, what's the best course here? By all means, we're just making suggestions for you to choose from and make an informed decision. And so when I get back is, well, I don't want to read all that crap. So the feedback then is, just send me where I can order this. So, okay. I back up, and this is, like I said, happening about a year and a half ago, and I send this young lady, here, for your chronic pain, take this and this and this. Okay. So then I get back about a week later. Well, I took 2 of this and 1 of that, and it just didn't do any good. I think I'll go back to my ibuprofen. So that's a choice. Well, I took the 2 PAs. It didn't do me any good. I said, did you remember what we wrote about the P's? Well, I don't like to read all those details. I said, well, the whole idea behind PEA is it's a persistent, built-up sort of thing. You take it, it raises your pain threshold. It helps your body be more resistant to the chronic pain that you're reporting. So, no, it doesn't work instantly the first time you take it. It builds up, and it's a good thing. It doesn't have any negative consequences. It's actually neuroprotective. Well, I don't remember that part. Okay, because a large part of what we try to do is, consumer and healthcare consumer education.
Yeah.
Tell them where to look. NCBI citations. Go read it. Don't take my word for it. Read what the credential experts have to say.
Well, when you think about also, when someone has chronic pain for years, and they've been in, chronic pain, every day it's crippling, they can't walk without it hurting, you would think, logically, that would be the first priority, to do anything I could to get rid of that chronic pain. Especially when you've gone doctor to doctor to doctor, and there's a learned passivity, the pain becoming part of their identity, and it's almost like you're hitting a wall, like there's no logic to this. And that's again why, like you said, we work with consumer education, our patient education about this type of stuff. And for anyone curious about chronic pain, we have a fantastic blog on the site about these things. Research it, learn about it yourself, because that's the only way you change it yourself. Whether that be within pain, your mental health, your job, do something about it. It's that simple. It's hard work, but the concept is pretty straightforward.
Yeah, and if we are telling people the truth, which we certainly try to do, the truth is always going to be that this healing regimen, paradigm, whatever you want to call it, is always going to be a partnership between us and them.
Yeah.
Where we're going to do our part, and hopefully they're doing their part. And if not, there's a limit to what we can deliver. We'll certainly try, but there is going to be a limitation based on what they're willing to bring to the to the situation, to the challenge.
And that's the proper word for it. It's sometimes you have to challenge them as well by bringing it to their attention that, do you want this to change or not? Do you want this to stay how it is and keep going through life for the rest of your life like this, or do you want this to go away? And some people I like to give people credit in the sense that sometimes that process is so subconscious they don't realize it's going on until it's brought to the surface, and then they have the chance to decide, do I want to confront this? No? Cool. We did our best. Have a wonderful day. Good luck with this. Please, here's some
information. And I think it really does become a matter, like you say so perceptively, Brian, a difference between the conscious perception they project to the outside world, like, okay, I've got this mobility issue. I really want to do something about this. But then when you suggest the stretching, you suggest the things to help improve the limitation of motion. Nothing is followed up on. You suggest, natural equivalents to a muscle relaxant that don't have the negative side effects on the body. Nothing is followed up. Nothing's ordered, perhaps. Then you go, what's the underlying thing here? It's become part of the identity, and even though they're uncomfortable as all hell, maybe they're in pain, maybe they're in immobility, there's still a part of them that is afraid to move on from that. That's afraid to let go of that part of their self-image, even though it's an uncomfortable place to be. In a sense, I think what we're seeing, ironically enough, is they've become comfortable with it, or at least they've made peace with it.
Yeah. That it makes a lot of sense, because if someone has these subconscious processes going on there and they don't know what they are, sometimes they're ingrained from childhood, sometimes it's from the mass media programming the reptilian brain and whatever else may be going on, sometimes genuine trauma, and sometimes learned experiences. And when they don't realize what these things are that tie into this emotional dysregulation, it kind of brings back to the concept of you're allowed to be uncomfortable. It's actually important to be uncomfortable and feel these things, because if there's a topic coming up that's making you triggered or uncomfortable, or it's triggering your trauma, good. There's something there. Because if it's causing that much, let's discuss what's going on behind this mechanism.
Let's go through it. Let's explore it. Because if you back off the instant you hit the wall of discomfort, you're never going to surmount the obstacle. You're never going to rise to the challenge that this situation has presented you with, and you're never going to get improvement.
Well, when you feel, I see this with so many people, but also just from myself going through, uncovering my own trauma, what happened to me, being raised, and all the fun things that I was, which we'll not get into on this podcast, maybe on Substack. But that raising anxiety, the panic attack feeling that comes up, that's your body, with your body being the theater for your subconscious mind coming out. Don't run from that. Approach it in a calm way. Maybe, if you feel that raising up, don't repress it. It will get worse. It will build into an autoimmune disease or anything else. Take your time. Allow that cortisol response to release. Do an active meditation, passive meditation. Go take a nice bath. Acknowledge it. Talk to one of us, frankly. This is what we specialize in. Or if you're with a therapist, don't hide from that, because all that will do, it will reinforce that passivity.
Well, I think maybe what you're hitting on here is a darn good thing you brought it up, Brian, is what is the goal of your therapy? Is the goal of the therapy to make the symptom of I feel anxious when you discuss this go away, or the symptom of I get triggered and get angry at you for having dared to discuss this, which is beneath my dignity to discuss with you, mere peasant, when I've already been programmed, I already know things. Don't challenge what I know.
Yeah.
Because
I'm two entirely separate topics, but same result.
Same mechanism though. You see, I'm going to defend myself from new knowledge. I'm going to defend myself from anything that might undo my reaction. Then you kind of locked yourself into that reaction, and you formed a little cell around the issue where it can't be changed. You can't confront it, and you can't improve on it. You can't improve on the person's life experience. I think that's what we run into there.
And also what we run into with this, especially going to the one of don't challenge my worldview. And it doesn't matter what your political beliefs are, but if you're radical about something, that should be a sign of something. But it's called neurolinguistic programming. You're programmed by the mass media, by society, by culture, by Disney, to here's what you should think, here's how you should react when someone goes against this thought process. And you see it where people will have the same thing over and over and over and over. I encountered this with the concept of, I wasn't trying to encounter anything, but I was having a conversation with someone where I said, people should not be hired based on race. It should be on merit and qualifications.
Yeah.
Logical thing to me. I was having a beer. I did not think it would cause any issue. Immediate response was the eyes glazed over, which is the first sign of a brainwash. And I started getting yelled at that I was being a white supremacist. And I said, wait, first off, do you want to take this outside? Second off, how does this... I said that race is not part of this. And the response was, well, that's what the white supremacists say. No, it's not. The white supremacists say really bad things that are focused on white supremacy.
What you basically just said, if this guy was willing to actually hear you, was a better qualified black guy should get a job rather than myself. Yeah. If he's the better qualified person that's colorblind and should be colorblind. And he refused to hear that because he was programmed to think that this is just some sort of a line or whatever.
Yeah, and there's no malice. I knew there was no malice from this person. And when I encounter that, and we see this with the clients, whether it's from NLP or just things that happen in the world, where there's this irrational logic around it. And what ends up happening is we, as the person on the other side, will get frustrated. At that point, you're creating loosh. Don't get frustrated. Just kind of laugh it off. Yeah. But if you are someone who reacts irrationally, what happens is then inside your head, when you react that way, you go, why do you react that way? Well, because I'm right, and it gets repressed. No, you're encountering a time to combat that mindset. Open it. Why did you just react? Go from 0 to 100, just like that. There's no in between. Normally you have a great frustration tolerance, but for some reason, that one topic made you snap. Yeah. Presented to you, NLP.
And it will be different topics with different people. In the case of this particular client, for example, it was, or patient, I guess you'd say, it was the idea that you would even suggest that she was responsible for her dietary choices and her choice of whether to follow a particular regimen. So I helped her to get to what is the underlying message here. And the underlying message is, one, just based on severe narcissism, is I am so special, I am so damn unique, that what applies in everyone else's gut biome can't apply to mine. Whatever laws of physiology work in everybody else's diet, like if I want to eat a greasy diet with very little fiber, I should still be able to expect perfect gut health, perfect digestive health, no matter what I do. And you, or a regular allopathic physician, should be able to give me something that makes me feel better. And by the way, I'm seeing you because those guys failed me. They couldn't give me anything to fix it. I'm going, no, they couldn't, because the issue is not under their control, my friend. It is your control. As long as you keep stopping and eating a pile of French fries and call that your vegetable to go with your cheeseburger, guess what? At 70-something, you've got a problem. And it's not going to clear itself up with that diet. If I ate that, I would feel miserable. But I know better, and I won't eat it.
And you see this permeate every pore of society nowadays, not just with your generation, but we have, especially with the induction of the participation trophy, where it's okay. You don't have to try. You're still going to get rewarded. Yeah. No, you have to try. It doesn't mean you're going to get, ostracized if you fail. In fact, you're going to get rewarded more if you fail and you try harder to grow. And sometimes you try really hard and you find out that you're really bad at something, so you try something else instead. That's okay.
It's partially the idea of something for nothing. I'm going to go to you, I'm going to pay you X amount, and you're going to fix things even if I don't have to do my part. I don't want to do anything at all.
Yeah.
You're magically going to make it better because, after all, you guys are shamans. So you magically just pull things out of the air. Whether I change a darn thing in I can keep smoking and you're going to fix my COPD. I actually ran into this while I was in training. I really did. This guy came to where we were training, the Verksung Hall, the training place. And he had an appointment. He was there a little bit early, arrived from a long ways away, traveled across a border or two. And he gets there and look around, I see this nice Volvo outside. I'm going, where's this guy? And I'm supposed to meet with him. And I smell some nicely scented pipe tobacco rock around the corner. And one of the other people's talking to him. He's sitting there puffing a pipe. I'm going, what? You're here to work on your COPD and you're still puffing a pipe. So we had a little talk about that, like you've got to do your part. And it turned out even over the phone, one of my teachers already said, look, here's baseline stuff you have to do immediately. No delay. If you don't want this to just drag you down. There's not a time delay on this. You've got to stop these things in your life cycle. You've got to get out and walk. A few things that just have to happen.
Yeah.
But, this is the idea. You're magically going to fix me while I'm completely passive and not part of the process. So this is a mentality, I think, that's probably pretty common in allopathic care. Like they deal with it more because they don't really care. They just shuffle you around. And, if this variety of pills that we prescribed didn't work, we'll just give you another course of something else and we'll try it again. And you'll come back in 3 months and we'll test you again and we'll try it again. And of course, meanwhile, you're racking up another $1,200 bill plus another, I don't know, however many hundred for your prescriptions. Or you say, I'm getting it for free while you're paying $600 a month for insurance and deluding yourself that somehow someone else is paying for this. No, you're paying for it through your premium every month. You're not getting anything for free.
And it's draining you more and more financially. Yeah.
And meanwhile, your health's not improving because the fundamental problem in your lifestyle has never been corrected. And, this is what we have to confront head on.
Well, that's what happens when you have, as we talk about and clients talk about it too. It's not conspiracy anymore. When you see that big pharma owns the medical system and that their goal is to quite literally drain everything from the client. You shouldn't have the cost of cancer treatment tripling right now for no reason whatsoever. It just doesn't make any sense. And logically, people are realizing this more and more. But to circle back real quick to one point, you mentioned the something for nothing. With this whole concept of just passivity and receiving something for nothing. You see this so common where, I get in arguments all the time with people about the concept that housing is a basic human right. So the thought is that you should just have that and that's it, no matter what. Not work for it, not have to have a job. And when you actually get into this conversation about, okay, well, who builds the houses? Do you? Well, you just have it. Okay, someone has to build these houses. Well, your taxes pay for it. Okay, so your taxes are paying someone else to build these houses. It's not a human right. Your human right should be the ability to work hard to grow, the true idea of the middle class.
Mm-hmm.
It's not, you don't get something for free. That's not how society has ever worked. I ran into someone the other day who said to me, just in casual passing, they got very angry when I combated this. Well, it was so much easier in the olden days. They didn't have to work as many hours as in, our ancestral times. And I said, no, people worked from sun up to sundown. You had to thatch your own roof, your own floor, grow your own crops. Your wife probably died in childbirth. Like, what are you talking about? It was way hard. We didn't have electricity. You had to know how to raise your own livestock. You couldn't go to the store. You didn't work 40 hours. You worked 90 plus hours a week. Your family time was working time. So you survived the winter if you were in that culture.
Well, and if you were an industrial worker, even when you came in off the farm, a 19th century industrial worker, good God, there's a reason we ended up with minimum wage laws and we ended up with a set up work week of 40 hours. These were reforms brought in by Theodore Roosevelt and other great reformers around the turn of the 20th century and the early first half of the 20th century. And they were brought in for a reason because an industrial worker might be working 65, 70 hours a week, 6 days a week at least. And it was brutal. So this guy's in a fantasy world. If he really thinks that his ancestors had it easier, I don't know what reality he's living in. And I do recall my dad's telling me, and he was showing me an artifact. Unfortunately, I didn't inherit it. I guess one of the other cousins probably did. An old pocket knife he had made from scratch in his own forge. You can see where it had been folded over. It had the different ripples of the different folded over metal in it, so it was very strong. He created a bone handle for it. And I said, it didn't look like it had been used out in the field or anything. So what did he use it for, Dad? He said, well, he used it when he was repairing the family's shoes by the fire in the evening. He had a shoe last, which was a cast iron thing that had different sizes on it, shaped kind of like a foot. And you would put the boot or shoe over it, and then he would cut off and trim the soles when he put them on. And, of course, remove an old sole, put a new one on, and sew it in, tack it in, and all of that. So he's coming in out of working in the fields as a tenant farmer and repairing things, fixing things by the firelight. And meanwhile, Grandma's over here shucking peas at night to eat the next day by firelight.
Yeah.
Everybody's doing something. The idea that the work day ever stopped is a fantasy. We actually have more leisure time today. Yeah. Although it may not feel like it at times. I think there was a kind of golden period in the maybe 50s through 70s when we did have a little more leisure time and we were closer to the 40-hour week. And I think the elites, Rockefeller Foundation, people like that looked at it and said, no, these people have too much time. They're spending way too much time at City Hall, way too much time, this growing middle class trying to interfere with our plans for where we want to steer society. So let's keep them busier. Let's just bust the unions, find workarounds for the new age, for the jobs. So what they started doing was just massively reclassifying jobs, which were actually just plainly clerical work, and calling all of it administrative, as if you actually manage something. So now you're, quote, on salary, no matter how many hours you work. We basically own you, and you can work 6 days a week once again. So we've kind of come back to where the 40-hour week for most of us is not a reality any longer.
Right. Well, and also you have the removal of the unions, the removal of pensions, and everything else, where instead of a pension, we'll match your contribution to a 401k in a broken stock market that could disappear at any time. So there's no sense of retirement. So, well, I mean, to circle back to the passivity for people in general, it's as a stark reminder, what are people's mentalities, how they approach the client-practitioner relationship. This isn't a judgment for someone not, pushing forward. It's acknowledging there are so many factors that have worked against people to keep them on that level of not getting better, because it's more profitable for you to be sick. So what we're combating is not you. We're combating those mechanisms that are holding you back, and then you need to do the hard work.
Well, let's call the mechanisms what they are, Brian. They're cultural inertia. Everything in the inertia of the culture stays sick. And it even says, whatever malady you got. I remember a cousin of mine who, I think he found that he had low testosterone, and he was just up visiting me from Florida. And so the doctor gives him some patches. I don't even remember what these things were called. Some sort of patch you put on. Well, the patch caused skin irritation. So she then gives him a medicine for the skin irritation. So it went on and on like this because he's completely in allopathic care. So he's taking this medicine. It has the side effects. So then they give another medicine for the side effects. So you end up with this entangled mesh of things that you maybe shouldn't even have to be taking in the first place. But whatever you were taking, the side effects, you got to really consider whether it's worth it or not. And or the form you're taking, it may not be worth it, or maybe problematic. So you're just or getting deeper and deeper into debt and into paying for all these medications every month. And of course, the consistent doctor visits. Of course, you're not smart enough to tell if you're having side effects yourself. You have to go spend a magical 5 minutes while the doctor comes through on roller skates, and you pay your $200 for that 5 minutes with him or her. And then you blurt out stuff that you could have answered a questionnaire online or sent in saying, hey, look, I'm having this and this and this. Then you could consider changing the medication, but monitor it yourself. Why don't we have this sort of patient self-accountability instead of forcing the doctor visit? Why? Because it's a forced system. It's just like price supports for farmers, where the government guarantees to buy so much. In this case, it's AMA rules saying you're required to go in. FDA requires you go in for this much monitoring. So it guarantees a steady stream of suckers coming through the door when they don't really need to. It's a scam. We all know it's a scam.
Well, how many times do you hear from a client after a session where their pain is gone? They're feeling fantastic. You recommend some things for them to look into to maintain this.
Yeah.
And the follow-up question is, well, so when do I need to see you again? And, we
Yeah.
cock our head going, well, are you hurting? Well, no.
No.
Did we achieve everything we needed to in the 2 sessions? Yeah. So why would I need to see you again? And you see their head it's almost like their head does a full 360 going, wait, but you and me need come together more because that's how it holds? No, it holds because you do the work.
I would even have them ask, well, don't I need to come by for a 6-month checkup? And about why? If the basic underlying situation has been changed, hey man, you're good. Something else pops up, give me a holler.
Well, there's that fear also pushed in the allopathic system that it'll come back. It'll come back. It'll always come back.
Yeah.
And
the idea that nothing can be cured. We can only manage, quote, manage the symptoms, because it's much more profitable to manage than to actually try to reach a conclusion on it.
Yeah.
Now, granted, there probably are some things that really can only be managed, but there are a hell of a lot of things that can be got rid of, and they just choose not to do it.
And when you get to the managing point, the whole point is for them to manage it themselves. Okay, we found what keeps your chronic pain at a level that you're functional, this, and this. Okay, cool, good. If it's not manageable for some reason, let's reassess. Let's talk about it. Let's see if there's something else that happened. Oh, you fell and hurt your hip. Okay, yeah, let's get that back to, as much as normal as possible. And
let's explore other options at that point. Yeah.
But if you're functioning, you're doing okay. Hats off to you. I don't want your money. I don't want to see you if I don't need to see you. And if it's someone that, doesn't want to approach it themselves and really, really participate in it, because we can only do so much to push past the mechanisms that hold you back, whether they are spiritual, which is sometimes the case. There are weird things out there holding people back, especially if you're an addict. Often you've been exposed to some weird stuff. So we work to remove those mechanisms so then you can make the choice to take the accountability and move forward. I notice it so often with people when I'll ask a simple question about, so let's explore, why did you not get the supplements? Why did you not read into them? And there's that defense mechanism automatically where they think I'm belittling them. But reality, I'm trying to explore what's holding back so we can help. Because I think people are so used to being infantilized and belittled constantly by doctors in the allopathic system that when you try to approach a genuine conversation that's trying to help them grow and empower them, they feel as though you're attacking them.
Yeah. Well, I think you bring up a good point about that mechanism too. When you mention addiction, I think of it even more holistically. Other things could be holding them back or holding them in the little revolving crisis, the recurrent issue from which they are suffering. They could be addicted to anger. They could be addicted to trauma. They could be addicted to self-pity and run a continual pity party to latch on to sympathetic strokes from the people around them. And so there's a built-in incentive at that point not to lose this.
Yeah.
Because after all, I think James was really drawn to me because he's a fixer-upper and I needed to be fixed. So if I actually get fixed, he may leave me.
Yeah.
No, he won't. He cares about you. That's the reason he's a fixer-upper in the first place. He'll have other things to care about. You'll care about supporting each other's upward growth. It doesn't have to be about fixing problems you have. No, it really doesn't.
And by the way, all the addictions you mentioned, the drama, the anger, just for people to understand, these all create chemical dependency releases in the body. So you are becoming addicted to the psychological and the action, but as well
You're
as the
addicted
physical.
To the brain chemistry that's involved with this change of mood, this change of mentation that occurs. And of course, also we can look at it spiritually, these underlying other dimensional beings who feed on these disruptions that these mind states create, which are not good for us, but apparently it's their food. It's what they feast upon, and we don't want to provide them with that.
How many people have you had, and especially recently, we've dealt with it quite a bit, where people have these irrational thoughts out of nowhere of self-sabotage, where everything is going great. And sometimes they are sabotaging themselves, but sometimes they go, where did that come from? It felt like it wasn't even my thought. Oh,
Yeah.
let's explore that. Let's find out if it is or is not. Most of the time, by the way, it is. It is genuinely an underlying process in your brain. But yeah,
Or sometimes indeed it's just a learned behavior because they see the parent or the older brother, or maybe the whole family culture is, well, things went going really well, but then, something always happens. So this becomes kind of a self-fulfilling prophecy. It becomes an expectation. And if we take that expectation serious enough, we're going to subconsciously make it happen.
Yeah. I think that's
on
one
the
of the
other hand,
most.
If we expect that things are going up and it's going to keep going, business is going to keep being good, whatever my grades will keep improving, whatever area of life you're talking about, if we expect to see it continue to be good, our lived experience will tend to follow our expectation to some extent.
Yeah.
Our mind will lead our experience. And there's one of the opening lines of the Dhammapada, the words of the Buddha says this, that I think it goes something like the experiences of life will follow the thoughts of a man as the cart follows the ox. I'm going, yeah, that is what happens.
I like that. I have to read that. I have not done that yet.
Yeah, it's worthwhile to dig a bit into Eastern thought sometimes. It's very pure in some respects.
I think it's very easy for people when they seek out any sort of healing practice in the holistic care outside of allopathy, especially with an energetic healing, which is only a small part of what we do.
Yeah.
Although we get lumped in with it, it's a small part. We explore the energetic side or the spiritual side last. Unless we pick up something right away. We go through the normal things because a lot of the time, that's what it is.
Well, we're multi-tiered, and we have to start by looking at the physical mechanisms, diet, supplements you may be taking, medicines you may be taking, their possible side effects, amount of exercise or lack thereof, how much sleep you're getting. All these factors are part of the holistic picture of your health. It's not just one or two things. Heredity, did this tend to run in your family? Importantly, some things actually do. So we have to understand these factors and factor it all in. And then if that fails to explain what's going on, what was it in the lifestyle that created it? What was it in the emotions that created it? So there we're looking at behavioral influences. And so we have the physical, the behavioral / emotional and mental. And then finally, we have also, of course, the spiritual. Right, what is there that may be an overarching factor from, if you will, from beyond that may be influencing you? Do you have actually an attachment? These things do happen. They're just not every time. What we find some so-called alternative methods come to, and I've had some people explain to me, but a really nice guy at one of our events who made a lot of sense, and he's going, no, everything is emotionally determined. Everything's emotionally drawn, and no matter what happened to you, if we fix it on an emotional level, it's fixed. I'm going, no, dude, if I'm riding around minding my own business, I'm stopped at a stoplight, and this guy's texting, and he rear ends me at 45 miles an hour, and end up with pretty severe back issues as a result of it. I need to work on this guy's back. His emotions had doodly squat to do with it. Oh, well, his emotions may have caused him to be there at that time. I don't think so. The other guy's emotions may have had some. There in life, there is such a thing as accidents. Put this word in your vocabulary if it's not. Everything's not predetermined, Every life is not following some neat little plan. What was that Puritan thing? Predetermination. Yeah. The Calvinist idea. And Islam is, at least a lot of schools of Islam, I'm not trying to speak for the whole faith, which has many different sects, but there is an idea of predestination in there too, in Calvinism and in and possibly some other faiths too. But to our way of understanding life, some things may be predetermined. A lot of things are not. We do have a lot of free choice. We do have a lot of choice between maybe even a range of, to some extent, predetermined options. So when you have that accident happen to you, it's not your fault.
Yeah.
It's not something you were doing wrong. It's not something that by changing how you feel would keep you from having stopped it. When that light turned red, you stopped. You didn't do anything wrong, fella. And if I try to make you feel guilty for it so that I can squeeze you into my way of thinking about therapy, I'm failing to serve you. That's where we are really, as Jeta, we are truly holistic.
Right.
We should look at the whole ball of wax, everything that went into that disorder that you might have, and to what the right order of your properly functioning body and mind, on the other hand, would be.
Well, there's this common misconception I see with people when, I talk about what it is that we do, especially bringing up the concept of pagan. Oh,
Yeah.
so what, we need to like change our whole worldview and believe in what you do? No, that's not what we said. Just letting you know what we do, and that's it. The only time that we have to explore something in their own worldview is if there's a conflict. Example, and I think it'd be a great topic to dive into another day, but you have someone who believes in predetermination, but also free will. Kind of contradictory subjects there, right? Now, there's nothing wrong. Like people don't realize that one of the values of the Asatru and the Odinists is to accept people for who they are. Their own religion, their own way of life, their own culture. As long as that's not hurting you or hurting anyone else, why is it a topic to bring up? If it is relating to your disease or your issue, your psychological issue, yeah, I want to explore it to see if we can find peace with that conflict. Example, the concept of original sin. When someone at the end of their life is scared to go, even though they lived a fantastic life, they were great. They were so great to people around them. But they start analyzing those little tiny things. Well, was that bad? Am I going to go to hell for that? So resolving those few conflicts and making them understand you're a good person. It's okay. You're fine. You can go comfortably. It's all right. Don't worry about it. You'll find out what's on the other side when you get there.
Yeah, I was glad you brought that up in the previous podcast. I thought it was really beautiful what you shared about that. When you mentioned their concept of what it means to be a pagan, I was listening to somebody who had some good points to bring out about the fact that there was a clinic set up outside the DNC doing a particular procedure. And I thought, that's a really bizarre thing to have at a political meeting. I wouldn't be having a medical procedure happening just outside it as if this was a big focus. And this Christian commentator was saying, this amounts to child sacrifice, this whole way of terminating pregnancies. And I was going, well, wait a minute. There's nothing pagan about that. She was saying, well, the Canaanites would offer their children to Moloch, blah, blah, blah. I'm going, hold on. You're calling everything that's not Christian, Islamic, or Judaic pagan and lumping it all together as evil. And that's not accurate to begin with. That's just your own arbitrary classification. And second of all, paganos was a word used by the Romans when the first phase of forced conversions, these people lived out in the country and they were paganos. They were rural. They were Hicks. So they hadn't converted like the urban masses were starting to convert to the new state religion of Christianity. That's where they came from. It didn't mean anything necessarily evil. It just meant you were kind of backward. Yeah. You hadn't gotten with the newest state religion. You weren't really paying Caesar all that you should pay Caesar because Caesar was telling you had to be Christian. And the other thing is trying to tint what we do as somehow believing in that kind of stuff, which not at all. In fact, I thought, as I heard it, I thought, well, what would you look at all the crusades, all the wars, all the repressions of people where children in the early Roman Empire, if they were found to have a pagan idol in the house, that child could be and was executed by the Praetorian Guard or other organs of the Roman imperial state under Christianity and throughout the life of the church. Even the crusades against the Stedingers in medieval Europe, mass exterminations of anyone. So is that not a form of child sacrifice and the sacrifice of adults also who are non-believers? What else do you call that, Christians? Apparently you people really do believe in child sacrifice and human sacrifice because you sure did it on an industrial scale. So your hands aren't clean. Don't talk to us about that. That's not what it means to be pagan.
It's kind of displacing the blame a little bit.
Oh, yeah. Or look at your jihads, look at your massacres in the Old Testament ordered by supposedly that which is speaking in the ear of Joshua.
Yeah. And as a note, this does not mean that the entire
No, not at
religion
all.
is anything bad. This is
No.
talking about people taking advantage of something and using the name of this example, the Pope going, go out and kill people in the name of God to take back the Holy Land,
Yeah.
and you will be absolved of all sin you do, including killing children. Because if it's the name of something righteous, and this goes into another conversation for another day, but you look at what happens in society today, as long as I am right, I am the righteous, I am the woke, if you would, it's okay to do whatever I want, like lock teachers in a building at UC Berkeley and force them to urinate in buckets during a protest of BLM and Antifa. That's somehow it was righteous because it was protecting people's rights. It just, if you feel you're righteous.
Denying other people's rights and, right.
Yeah. That may be a good topic, woke as a religion.
Yeah, and I think you see it even still causing wars, because one of the justifications for Russia's attack on Ukraine is well, these people aren't a righteous people, and we're a church state where the Russian Orthodox Church now is the official church. God, what is his name? Not the Pope, but the primate, Basil, the head of the Russian Orthodox Church, issues basically a papal decree saying that if you die on the battlefield, you're automatically going to heaven. I thought, wow, that's bizarre. So you're attacking another people, you're firebombing their cities, you're mass bombing and using precision munitions, guided missiles hitting apartment buildings, high rises, children's hospitals, playgrounds, and you're righteous, and this is going to get you in heaven if you die in the process of carrying this out because they oppose you? Really? That's going to get you to heaven, huh? So we see this today. This is the Old Testament mentality.
Well, I think the important thing to note here for people that within your own cultural group, within your own friend group, your own family, your own religion, just as we would hold someone else accountable who's saying, oh, they're an Odinist and they're really a white supremacist, you are not an Odinist. You are not an Odysseus. You are a piece of garbage.
Well, please show me anywhere in the Eddas where it says that we're the only people in the world. If anything, what I hear is this voice of pluralism, like there are 9 worlds. There are these different realms even within our world. And each should stay in their own land, do their own thing. And I mean, even if you look at the somewhat degenerate practices of the Viking Age, which everyone holds up as some sort of great time.
Because of Netflix.
Yeah, Netflix, it's crazy stuff. These people traded with Chinese people they met on the Silk Road in Central Asia. We find beads of amber made in the Nordic culture area in Chinese tombs. We find Chinese silks buried with German princes. So we know this trade existed. These people met with each other with mutual respect, with mutual interest. They had conversations. They didn't intermarry. They didn't intermingle to any great extent, but they treated each other with respect. They had trade, and they didn't just automatically go to war all the time either. So this idea of some sort of supremacy is not, to my mind, borne out by anything in the Eddas or the Kalevala or anywhere else. This is just, I think, a reaction in part to the beginning of third world migration into the Western world and the view of what happens in societies based on slavery and on importing a lower wage working class. To some extent, this outsourcing had already begun in the 19th century, although it got a lot worse in the 20th century. So it was to some extent kind of a knee-jerk reaction to that. Or maybe it's just a built-in thing that all peoples do of trying to imagine themselves as the center of the universe, like the idea of imperial China. And the Han people actually do formally state themselves as being superior to all the people around them. And basically, if you're not Han Chinese in the People's Republic of China, you are a second-class citizen, whether you're a Uyghur or whatever, a Muslim or Christian minority. You are not afforded the same respect or rights as anybody else is. And the same thing can be said of Israel. If you're not a born, recognized Jew, you're a second-class citizen. I'm sorry, but that's the way it is. And this is coming to light throughout the world. So we do see manifestations of it elsewhere, but I don't think it has any place in our view of things.
No, it doesn't. And if we encounter someone who is claiming to be a part of this and acting in that manner, you hold them accountable. The same thing goes for a friend group, as I mentioned, a cultural group, or within your own religion. There are groups of people that are bad. That's it.
Yeah.
It's not necessarily the culture that caused it, but those groups take advantage of it. Maybe they're brainwashed. Doesn't really matter. You don't have to defend them because in some way you defend them, it hurts your foundation. If your foundation is strong, that's what matters. If you as a person know you're doing well, your group around you is doing well, who cares? You don't have to defend that guy just because they have a label on them. It's very easy to put a label on yourself to go, I'm a good person because I do this, when they're really certainly not.
Yeah.
You can't hide behind religion.
Well, there's really nothing wrong with each culture wanting to defend and protect its own unique contributions to the human tapestry, but you have to realize it is a tapestry. If you overrun and oversettle a particular part of that culture, say Western Europe, with anyone and anything else, you destroy that particular little square in the human tapestry, and you ruin that beautiful quilt that we should be part of, where I'd really like to go hear Bavarian folk songs with that pa beat and all that stuff, and see guys wearing lederhosen and making their own home-crafted beers and all of that, and Oktoberfest and all that goes with it. I don't want to see it overrun with something else. And if I went to, say, Turkey, I really would prefer not to see a bunch of people in blue jeans aping Western ways and listening to their headphones all the time and practicing rock music or rap music. I'd rather see them doing their own thing. That may be an impossible dream, but I'd like it if each one could. Sure, you can learn from each other, but basically preserve that which is unique in your own people's experience. That's your collective memory in that culture. And there's nothing right or wrong in it.
No,
it's just a different variation of how we lived. It's part of our human history and should all be respected. So I think that's the ultimate path to tolerance and to not having this sort of intertribal rivalry that we seem to encounter.
Yeah.
But anyway, I guess we're mainly talking about the healing paradigm today and what goes on with the healing regimen. It's easy to get off on these other things, and there is some level at which they connect and relate that you do run into them.
Well, they all do intercede with each other in different avenues, but because these are such vital topics going on in the world, they create so much division. So working on resolving the conflicts and all this stuff is incredibly important, because otherwise these are floating around in the back of everyone's mind constantly. So by just discussing them, whenever you have a topic that creates emotional or mental dysregulation, the best way to depotentiate it is discuss it. Find out what is behind it, what is making that point. Doesn't mean you have to agree with what someone says, but talk about it. Make your own opinion.
And hopefully be civilized enough to have a respectful exchange. And where you can't have a respectful exchange, to me, that means the person's not really grounded in what they're telling you. Because if you're really grounded in it, then I'm not afraid to hear what you have to say.
Yeah. If your foundation is strong.
If I need to shift mine a little bit, great. You just give me some more information I can use to make a better judgment or make a different assessment of the world I'm dealing with, I think, Brian, that we have probably said enough things to piss enough people off today. We should be getting some scalding hot posts on our exchange coming in so we can perhaps read some of those in a future episode.
Absolutely. And we invite anyone, if you ever want to be on here as well, to discuss these topics with us. From the healing standpoint, of course, please hop on here. We'll do a joint recording. Love to have you on here, or just send us some of your questions.
I was even thinking of somebody, Brian, that I don't think you've dealt with her much, but I do think you called one of my patients recently that I've dealt with for a number of years. And I just invited her. I said, come on, I'd like to hear about your healing journey, because, she faced some horrible chemical contamination early in life, has suffered from it since, and has just done wonderful things to try to get rid of it. And the resourcefulness this very intelligent woman has applied to overcoming this, even before she ever met me, is pretty darn remarkable. So that might be worth a whole episode itself. Just a healing journey could be what we call it, if you like, if that idea resonates with you.
I would love to have them on here. That sounds fantastic.
And she's very articulate, very bright, it makes a good appearance that way. So, all right, well, let's do that. I did put the question out there, so I'll hopefully get a reply sometime today.
Beautiful, beautiful. So
right.
I'm sure listeners will love seeing that in the future.
Well, thank you for joining us, everyone who's been here listening to us or watching us, as the case may be. By the way, are we going to be elsewhere other than just on YouTube? Are we elsewhere with our video format yet?
Just on YouTube for now. We will be posting on other platforms eventually.
Okay, super. So, guys, if you're tired of just hearing those voices, you'd like to see what a craggy old man looks like and a good-looking young man look like, you can always tune into us on YouTube and see us that way. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much, guys. And go with God's field.
Go with the gods.